and wanted to write stories about people behind them, because I think otherwise people's eyes glaze over when you talk about women's empowerment. You know, it's just so much more noise that people don't have time to absorb in their day, and really they sort of start to block out. And I think what I wanted to start to change was the fact that we see women's stories as soft. And we all buy into it. I think as a reporter in Afghanistan, you almost apologize for writing about women's stories because they're not hard news. They're not the story of war. But they are. And so, you know, you tell me what's easier, you know, shooting a gun through a window or getting out the broom, sweeping up the pieces and putting up a tarp where the hole is. And yet it's the stories of women who pick up the pieces every day and pull families through we just don't tell. And we don't really ever look for. And so that's why I found myself in Dubai Terminal 2 trying to figure out how to put on a headscarf so that I looked convincing when I landed in Afghanistan. And I was just as green as a reporter can be. And she had all these ideas, and I'm thinking, well, I'm barely 30, and I know you're not 30. So how in the world do you know all this? You've only lived through war. This is only 4 years post-Taliban. And she said to me, well, what do you mean? How do I know all this? I had this terrific business during the Taliban that created jobs for all these women in my neighborhood, and it really made a difference. And I sat there as a reporter thinking, wait a minute. This is the moment where you find the story that you feel like you cannot walk away from, because it goes against everything we've ever heard about the Taliban years, right? Everything you hear is that women were in prison at home and never could leave the house and never could support their families and never could make the difference. And yet here were girls who were breadwinners at a time when they weren't even supposed to be on the street. So I think what I learned in the 5 years I spent working on this, and I probably started reporting and researching it in earnest about 2008. What I really learned was that not only were there women who had been breadwinners during the Taliban, but there were a lot of them. The Taliban swept through Kabul, and they really changed life overnight. So overnight, young women who are just like us in this room, who go to work every day, who went to school every day, who contributed to their families, who contributed to their communities, were under house arrest. And they couldn't take it. They were just like you and I would be at a certain point. You can't stay home anymore. And you had a lot of men who had to leave Afghanistan. And they had to leave Afghanistan for two reasons. One was security, and one was economics. And security, if you were from the wrong ethnic group or in the wrong place at the wrong time, you could be sent to the front lines in Afghanistan. You could absolutely disappear from the streets and never be heard from again. So if you were 17 to 30, you were sent out. And if you had been a supporter of the previous government, then the Taliban would come looking for you. They would knock on the door and say, we heard that so-and-so lived here. And either you were home, or better for you, you weren't home. And so a lot of men ended up leaving. And so you had this situation where a young girl like Kamala Siddiqui was left at home with 5 brothers and sisters, all of whom were counting on her to support them. We rarely think about Afghanistan and women and entrepreneurs and the Taliban in the same sentence. And that is part of why I hope you will really enjoy this book and share it with people that you know and people you think might find it interesting. It's really a story for me of unlikely entrepreneurs and unsung heroines who make the difference every day all around the world with absolutely no one paying attention. And this for me was my chance to even ledger when maybe bring them a little bit of attention from outside their borders. And I hope that you'll join me in trying to change the conversation about women and war, because we are so used to seeing women as victims to be pitied rather than survivors to be respected. And I think that this book does its part to change the conversation and to show that women are far more than victims. They're actually breadwinners and survivors and the people who carry communities through. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm really grateful.